Hi guys, my name is Sonia Chandler with Socks on a Rooster, and thanks for tuning in to watch this tutorial today. Today's instruction is going to be over how to do artisan plaques. This one in particular is going to be on a decorative cutting board. And normally I use these small pieces of wood. I have them cut or I buy them at the hobby store in this shape. But I had this cutting board and decided I would use it. I also sometimes buy frames at the thrift store and reuse those. But what you're going to do is you're going to take your image and you're going to start folding back the edges to create a frame or a circle or however it is that you want that shape to look on your board, whether it be a cutting board or whatnot. And all I'm doing here is because my board is very dark, it's stained, and my paper is very light, I want to put a base down underneath that. Now normally when I would be using my artisan piece of wood plaque, I would be painting my whole piece of wood completely, but because I'm doing the cutting board and I'm leaving some of that natural stained wood on the outside, I'm only painting just what was going to be underneath what's going to be underneath my decoupage paper here, which is that light cream, and it would show through. So normally I would be painting my whole entire surface of the wood plaque. I would be painting it my base color or a lighter color like this so that my image will show up and it doesn't turn dark underneath the color of the masonite or like this cutting board here. So just going through this quick step, it's not doesn't take much time. And here I'm just trying to, the reason I'm doing it this way is because I had to try to shape it up without making much to go into the wood part. Now, this is the part where we decoupage. If you haven't done that before, you're going to need an adhesive medium, which is a decoupage medium. It's like a glue. And you're going to put a thin layer over your area, and you're just going to place that down and get all of the edges. You just want to carefully smooth it. When you use decoupage paper like this, which is like a thin tissue paper, you run the risk of ripping it, like I did right there. But I'm not worried about that. You can kind of mend it, stick it back where it goes, and you won't hardly ever even see any mistakes. And you can see right there on the corner, I didn't get any paint, and you can see how dark it made my my image there. So I'm just putting a little paint underneath there and gluing that back down. And that's really what step one is about. Step 1 and 2, getting your image shaped out onto your plaque or your cutting board, and then getting that adhered down, because you want that a nice, clean, smooth application. And don't worry if it's a little bit wrinkly or bumpy. When that dries, it will smooth out. So you don't have to be too worried if it's wrinkling or puckering. That will go away, and you'll be able to tell that. Now I want to just show you when I'm doing my smaller plaques. You kind of want to shape your picture, and you kind of fold back your images to fit onto your plaque, but you want to always account for the fact that you're going to be putting a molding frame on there. So if this plaque is too small, you're not going to be able to fit that on. Just wanted to make that point. So now step 3, you want to seal the top of your image. So you're going to take the same decoupage medium and you're going to give a thin coat over the top of your image. Now we're going to lay out our frame. And this is the fun part. I enjoy this. So I already have some molding pieces already kind of molded out. The things you're going to want to start with is what will be your top piece. And as you can see, I have kind of a statement piece up there at the top. And then I'm going to do like a focal point piece down here in this right hand corner with one of the new cameo molds. And then I'm using the Boughs of Holly to go with my Christmas image of the tree boughs on with those birds on it. and you're just going to start piecing things together. Take your stack of molds and start looking at what looks like you can piece that together to create a frame. And I know I have my top piece, so I can put that in place. That's kind of my anchor piece. You're going to start at the top. You're going to glue that down with a thin layer of, I use Tight Bond glue, but you want a good holding adhesive. And this mold is not even yet dry. That clay is not even fully dry, but that's okay. It will dry. And I'm going to center that, and that's the start of my frame. And then you can start to take pieces, and I know that I'm going to use that little focal point right down there at the corner. That's something to carry your eye down there to that right-hand corner, and I can put that in place. And so you kind of have two starting points there, but you'll always want to kind of anchor your top molding first and your bottom molding. And normally my bottom molding would be centered when I'm doing a typical frame, but since I was putting this off to, I'm doing it off center and doing it off to the right, I'm anchoring that into place first. And I knew that I wanted to take this cameo frame, or this frame, and I wanted to put the boughs of greenery all around it. So I'm building that slowly. I'm putting my molds in and building it and taking the end of a very tiny paintbrush, and you can kind of push things in. Now, I'm going to go over how I do my molds, okay? I kind of go in and use a non-sharp butter knife. There's no edge to it, so I'm not going to harm my mold. And I scrape towards me, and I scrape till I get that very clean edge with the, the border that they have on the stamps now. And I can show how you can use that knife technique even on the older stamps that don't have the edging. And this is a secret tip. Okay, this works for me with the clay that I use. I take a little bit of olive oil and I put it down in my mold, just a tiny bit, not enough to even make it shiny. I put the little olive oil down in my mold with a brush, and then I wipe it out with a t-shirt. And what that does is my molds fall right out, and there is no oily residue on the top. So that is just a little secret tip to get a lot of molding done in a short amount of time. I'm able to, if I just make my molds have a slight little bit of a greasy, not actually greasy, but it would be as if like your hands were greasy, but you wiped them off with a paper towel. They're not dirty really anymore, but they're not completely clean of oil. So that's how you want your mold when you put the clay into it. And it does not cause any residue on the surface, and it does not affect any painting or anything I do going forward. So you're just building your mold here, your frame. And this is really the fun part for me when I make these artisan plaques. I love to layer these molds and build the frame up to look as if it's a carving. You can see, the true wood carvings on old antique furniture, and that's basically what I'm trying to mimic here with the molding. And again, I'm just going in and adding little tiny acorns to my bunch around that frame, which that new frame is one of my favorites right now, of the many new favorites. But now I'm going to work my way around from the top to the bottom. Now here's the little secret about making it. Okay, you can go through your stacks of molds. Okay, what looks good? What looks like it could fit into that place? The other little secret is, while your molding is wet, your impression, when it comes out, you can straighten it. You can curve it a little bit more. You can manipulate it ever so slightly in an effort to get that to create a better frame. And you're just going to try different shapes here. So this one looked as if it would be a great carry-off piece from my top piece. A lot of times, and this is the Baroque mold, an older one, and it has a pair, so they, you know, they coordinate, and I can put both in, and I know those are going to come off the top of that frame really nicely. So I'm getting those in there, and I'm doing the same scraping technique to get that super clean edge to my impression before it comes out of the mold. And I used the tiniest, that slight bit of olive oil, and there we go. I've got the start of my frame. See how that works? And I could bend it and manipulate it if I needed to, but right now it's looking really great. And then I'm going to glue those into place while they're still wet, those impressions. And from here, you're just continuing to build. This is the fun part, the creative part of piecing, you know, these gorgeous molding designs together. There's nothing quite like these designs anywhere, so it's really fun to take pieces of them, elements of them, and fit them all together. Now, I cut a lot of my molding impressions apart, and here I am looking through and going, okay, it might be nice to do a little bit of one of these borders as part of it. I have a whole tray of dried borders, moldings, and I suggest that you do this if you're going to start working on these artisan plaques, but that way you have dried pieces that you can lay in there and see which looks best on your frame. So here I am just going in, and I have a bottom left-hand piece you can see down there, which is the same Baroque molding as the two top pieces. And now I'm just going in and I'm taking my teeny tiny razor blade. And you can buy these razor blades that go into these box cutters that have points. And you can use them just free-handedly, and they get into the very corners and crevices of your mold, and you can cut these molds apart very clean. And they almost look as if they all go together. And then you can just bend and shape and sort of sculpt in a way your clay here before it dries. And it's just, you know, a piecing together of your frame. And your eye will tell you what looks good to you. And try many different molds. One might look better than the other, but you'll never know if you don't lay it down there next to the other pieces to see what it looks like. So here I am, and I'm going to do a matching piece on both sides of one of the trimmings. And I believe this is Trimmings 3 that I'm using here, one of the newer ones that I really like this particular trim. So I'm going to fit that in with the Baroque corners, edges that I have there. And then kind of fit and cut those in with my razor blade, and I'm liking that. But I felt as if my kind of focal point down there in the right hand corner needed a few more things. And so I'm going to go in and add a few more boughs of greenery down in there. But I'm also taking my razor blade here and I'm cleaning up any glue that may have edged out on the sides. You want to make sure you clean that up, or put a thin enough layer on to where you do not have any of that ooze out, because that will change your impression. You'll be able to see that built up on the edges, and we're trying to get as clean of an image as we can. So just take a minute and quickly clean up that glue around those edges with that pointy razor blade right there. And so I'm just going in and filling in all of the breaks in my frame here, which, as you can see there now, I'm getting to almost a completely solidified frame, and I'm liking that. I did notice that I needed a few more detailed pieces around my cameo frame there, and you'll see me go back in and, as I say, fine tune it. You'll say it needs something more, it needs a little bit more balance here or there, or there might be some empty spaces that look like they shouldn't be empty. So here I am adding a little bit of a bough of greenery right there. And you can take those the pointy ended razor blades, and they cut these molds beautifully, this clay really sharp and well. And then I added a few more items, a bird, and I added some more decoupage into that cameo area. And now it's time to gold leaf. And so here I am with my gold leaf, and it's a two-part process. You have the sizing, which is the adhesive, and you have your the leaf itself. And you can get this in a bundle. It's Amy Howard at Home brand. I sell it here in my space in Nashville, Tennessee. You can get that at Gas Lamp Antiques 2 in space T151, or you can get it online, and they come in a bundle. You can get your adhesive and your gold leaf together. And so you're going to take a tiny little paintbrush, and you're going to go in and you're going to paint all of these little details, and you're going to coat it with a nice thin coat of your sizing adhesive. You go in and just cover all of those areas, and I go in sections so that I don't miss any areas. And even though I do go in sections, I still can sometimes tend to miss sections. And you don't want any holidays. Those are blank spaces where your glue did not get in, and so your gold leaf will not attach there. But I just go in and make sure I get a nice good coat on all of these molding areas. And you don't want it too thick, or it takes too long to dry, or it could be gooey when you lay down your gold leaf, and you don't want that. So nice good layer over all of your molding, and then make sure you haven't missed any areas. And then we're going to go in with our gold leaf. And the camera got a little bit darker here because it's super cloudy and raining here today in Nashville, Tennessee. But here I am. My glue dried overnight. You can leave it overnight, or you can wait, a little while and then come back in, and you're just going to lay down these pieces. The gold leaf comes in a little cardboard package, and when I get it, I cut off the binding. It's all bound at one end, and I cut the binding off so that I have my sheets that I can individually just lift out of there. And you're just going in with a dry brush. That's a dry brush that I have in my hand right there, and I'm laying down that gold leaf over those areas. Now, your sizing adhesive, if you don't wait overnight, you'll know that it's dry and ready to go when it's tacky to your touch. So you can just touch it with your finger, and if it's sticky, like the back of a sticker, but it's not wet, doesn't come off on your finger, you'll know it's ready to lay down your gold leaf. And you're just going to do just exactly that. You're going to lay down that gold leaf over all of those areas that you put the adhesive. And this is what I love about gold leaf. It's not going to stick to anything that you didn't put adhesive on. And as you take that dry brush and you knock away all of the excess, you get a very well-defined area there. You can also take a dry rag and knock some of that loose away. And when you're all done with that first layer of gold leaf, you can go in and see if there's any places you have missed. And I did miss a couple of little tiny areas, so I'm just going in right here. And then I decided I was going to do the edge. I thought the very edge of this board would look great with gold leaf as well. So that's what I'm doing here. It only takes a minute. And so I'm going along the edge of my board and adding some more of that size adhesive. And I thought it would look great along with my gold frame to give this whole board a gold edge. So I'm just doing that. Only takes a minute. And once you start learning to gold leaf, you'll see how quick and easy it can be. And it's also a very clean mess. You can say that it's messy because there's a lot of gold flakes that are left over after you've applied that to your adhesive areas, but it's a clean mess and it vacuums up very, very easily. And so I like to do it because of that reason. It doesn't take long, and it doesn't take much gold leaf. When you're doing trim like this, 2 or 3 or 4 sheets is enough to get you an entire project done. So it does not take much gold leaf at all. It goes a long way. So there I have my edging now, and I'm going to leave that that raw wood but I am going to do a little bit of a wash over the entire thing. And I'm going to show you here how to go over your gold leaf to make it not so brassy and bright, so that it tones it down a little bit. And here I am just going in and touching up any of those little areas that I missed with my sizing adhesive. And you can just take flecks or pieces left over of your gold leaf, and I save all of that in a bag because you can go back and you don't have to use an entire new leaf. You just go in. Okay, so now this is where we're going to paint over our gold leaf. And I'm going to be using milk paint here. Now, if you have not ever used Toscana Milk Paint by Amy Howard, you are going to be in for a real treat here. It is one of the most beautiful artistic mediums to add to your Artisan Plaques because it gives it a very old world finish, and it lends itself to an antique just from the looks of it. It's premium. There's nothing better. It's bar none. And yes, I do love it. You can tell. So here I am mixing. You want to mix slow. You're going to put a little bit of your powder in to your mix, and you're going to leave it sit. And again, I'm mixing a little bit of blue here. This big bag will last you forever, but you're going to put a little powder in the bottom, a little water, and you're going to mix. You're going to actually mix it with a brush. So here I am going in. My paint has set and it has all melded together and mixed and dissolved. And I'm going in, I'm taking some wet lint-free paper towels to lay there on the side because I'm going to be wiping away. So here I am with my green, and I'm going in with my green, and I'm going over the boughs of evergreen there. And I'm going right over my gold leaf. It's not going to hurt your gold leaf, and actually you're going to wipe that away from the high points, and you're going to leave that green down into the bottom. And the milk paint will, go down into those crevices, and it will give the appearance that those boughs of holly are green. And then I'm going to use the brown on my acorns and do the same effect. So you're going to go over those molds that have the gold leaf on them. You're not going to hurt your gold leaf, so you can paint right over that gold leaf. And you're going to take a little bit of a wet paper towel, and you're going to wipe away the tops because you want your gold leaf on the high raised areas to show through. And here I have the blue because there's actually a little bit of blue in that decoupage image, and I wanted to bring that out. So I'm putting that around my cameo frame there. And I added some birds from the bird mold, so I'm going to put those on the birds. And I'm also going to carry this blue all the way up and around the gold frame, and I'm going to put it onto the wood a little bit, but I'm going to wipe that away. So you're still going to see that dark wood stained surface, but you're also going to see some of the blue. But when you put this milk paint into these gilded molding areas, it works like a stain, essentially. You're getting a little bit of the color, but you're wiping away. So your paper towel is your negative tool, and you're basically just wiping away. And when you are able to look at this up close, it looks very old world. As you can see, milk paint dries lighter than it goes on. So as you can see, it's kind of a powdery blue here. And so in order to bring some of that color back out or to darken it again, you can use a glaze, which is in that can there, or you can use light and dark wax. And so here I have my Amy Howard light and dark wax, which you always want to use together. So when you load up your brush, you're going to rub your brush down in there, and you're going to offload onto a little piece of cardboard paper right there. And you're going to brush this ever so lightly. Ever so lightly. You want to make sure that you're just barely finessing the top of your piece. And as you can see, that blue is getting darker again. And then here I'm going in with dark wax, and I'm offloading, and you only want to use it around the edges. Okay, you do not want to go straight down into your picture, and you don't want to use it alone. You want to make sure you're going over the top of your light wax, because dark wax, it's too dark to be used by itself. And I have ruined a project faster than you can imagine by just using dark wax way too quickly. And here's a little bonus. These are some of my Christmas tree spindles that I make, and I added some bird molds to these as well. So I'm going to show you just another quick technique you can do. I'm taking that same Central Park color milk paint, since I had some left over from the cutting board I just the cutting board I just did. So here I am putting a little bit of that milk paint over these are just raw spindles, and I have put some molding on them, some bird molds, and lock and key. From the lock and key mold, I have a few embellishments on there, and then I gold leafed those moldings. And I'm just going over the gold leaf directly, and then I'm taking a wet paper towel and I'm wiping away some of this milk paint. And what you can see is that raw wood underneath, and it gives it a very rustic feel. And then I'm going to need to seal my milk paint, because all milk paint has to be sealed, but I'm going to use a cerusing wax here, and it's a white wax, and it gives it a very rustic feel. If you like that farmhouse rustic or restoration hardware finish, that's exactly what this cerusing wax is going to give you, especially when you use it over milk paint. So as you go over here, or raw wood, so I've rubbed some of that milk paint away, so you can see a lot of that raw wood underneath that blue milk paint. And as I brush on this wax, just like you did with the light and dark wax, you're going to start to see it catch the high areas. And you're just going to gently rub away what you don't need off the top of your gold leaf. So if you get wax on top of your gold leaf there, you can just take a dry paper towel and rub it off, and then you have your finished product here. If you have any questions, please leave them down in the comments. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have about any of the steps here today. And I'm grateful that you watched today. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you have a very Merry Christmas and a happy crafting season. Thanks so much.